This week on the Pro Wrestling Podcast, Ric Flair pulls his dick out on an airplane and everybody freaks the fuck out. Danhausen retired The Undertaker? True story. Big E Langston is your new WWE Champion, and we couldn't be prouder. And Adam Cole, baby, is back on BTE. I'm your host, Seth Grimes, and this is the Pro Wrestling Podcast. All right, y'all, it's rant time. We're just going to get right into it because I'm pissed off right now. Just scrolling through the Facebook feed, and I saw that fucking Tommy Dreamer has been indefinitely suspended from Impact Wrestling because of his fucking comments on the Dark Side of the Ring show about Ric Flair. Let me calm down. Let me take a deep breath. Let me try to regroup here, regather my thoughts, because what the fuck is going on in the world today? What's up with this cancel culture shit? Look, first of all, to address Ric Flair, because I think we got to add context to this entire thing. For those of you that don't know, there was the Dark Side of the Ring episode this week. Brand new return, part 2 of season 3. Just like part 2 of season whatever of the Pro Wrestling Podcast, right? Or just exactly like that. And in this episode, they covered the plane ride from hell, the infamous plane ride from hell. I believe there were actually 2 that could be considered the plane ride from hell. But there was one that was more helly than the other helly. Okay? One where Vince tried to fight Brock, and then one where Kurt Hennig tried to fight Brock. A lot of people trying to fight Brock on airplanes. I don't know why. But in this particular episode, and we all kind of knew this was coming because this was part of the lore of the Nature Boy and part of the lore of this plane ride from hell. We've all heard the situation. We've all heard the story of Ric Flair walking around in the robe. And just the robe. Triple H talked about it at one of the Hall of Fames. I don't remember whose it was. I think it was when he inducted Nate. And he was talking about, there Nate was in his robe and just the robe. Apparently, Flair's pretty well hung. I didn't know this. I had never actually heard this part of the story. No one's ever came out and just said he's packing, like Virgil's packing. We all know Virgil's packing. But we don't know that Ric Flair's packing. But I guess you could assume that, right? Take a guy like Ric Flair, Space Mountain. There's got to be something more to it other than his charming good looks, right? Ruggedly handsome Nature Boy with his big old nose and his bleach blonde hair and all of his gig marks and stuff. But apparently, the well-hung Nature Boy Ric Flair could take said penis and twirl it around like a fucking helicopter propeller all by itself, just with a wiggle of his hips, a little gyration, if you will. Just get that thing spinning and flapping. So in this story, it is alleged, and mind you, this is alleged, so this is kind of the root of my beef with Tommy Dreamer. And I'll explain it all. And I'll give you guys the floor. If you want to leave comments in the comments and tell me how I'm dead wrong and I got all this wrong and everything, blah, 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 fucking tell me. I'm willing. I'm always open for a debate. Or I'm always open to discuss. Because I don't know everything. But I certainly have a fucking opinion. And my opinion is that cancel culture is way out of control right now. Why are you so offended by everything? And if you are offended, why do you need to take that offensiveness and instead of just going to your safe space in your basement or your fucking mom's bedroom and just crying about it for a little bit and getting over it? Do you need to ruin people's careers? Cancel me for this fucking episode. I don't give a fuck. All right? So we got the Nature Boy allegedly walked up to a stewardess with his well-hung helicopter propeller spinning around, and he asked her to touch it or hold it or rub it up against her or whatever the fuck he did. Now this very well might be true. Actually even kind of sounds like it is true. I really don't doubt it. Maybe he was drunk and kind of blackout drunk and didn't really realize or remember the next day, or it just didn't occur to him that, you don't really ask chicks to touch your penis unless they already want to and you're already kind of like in the bedroom or something. And frankly, you don't even expose yourself to women. That in itself is ridiculous. And he should have gotten in more trouble than he did. In fact, they say, Jim Ross says in this episode,
we have to stop in our society letting others' transgressions go without punishment.
How does it that Ric Flair evaded any sort of suspension or anything like that?
Good question. I guess, lack of a better term, he was a made man. And he was such a high-level made man that he got a pass. Was it the right thing to do? I don't know. You're listening to it, folks. You decide.
He was a made man, he said, mafia style. Before I get too hot about it and get too in-depth, check out this clip from Dark Side of the Ring.
Sometimes, as a joke, Ric Flair would put on his robe, not wear anything else, and walk that aisle like Ric Flair, and then open it up and woo!
That's the big high spot. I wanted to see Rick coming out naked in his robe, so he did it on the airplane for everybody, and that's what the guys want to see. That's what makes them laugh.
He could move his hips and twirl it, and so his well-endowed penis spins around like a helicopter. So that's, hey, he's the Nature Boy for a reason. He's got a hammer on him.
And I was in the galley. The galley is where our little kitchen area on an airplane. Ric Flair was naked in a cape only, and then he decided to come back to the galley to get a Coke. And then he wouldn't leave the galley. He had me up back against the back door, and I couldn't move. I couldn't get away from him. I couldn't move. He was spinning around his penis, and he wanted me to touch it. And he took my hand and put it on him.
Ric Flair is not going to try to impose by force any sexual stuff onto anybody. He's just flaunting, styling and profiling, doing like the Ric Flair stuff where everybody's going to laugh about it. But obviously someone took offense to it.
So we have a man by the name of Ric Flair who clearly, it's assault to just expose yourself to a woman, okay? That doesn't want to be exposed to. If it was just the boys and there weren't female stewardesses there or even male stewardesses, are they stewards if they're men, or are they stewardesses? How does that work? Or are they non-binary? Do we not gender identify stewardesses? Anyway. So Ric Flair was way in the wrong just for having his dick out to begin with. But if it was just the boys, it's a harmless rib. It's a joke. It's, the Nate in his robe. He's drunk and he's walking around exposing himself. That's all well and good if it's just the boys and it's a locker room thing. It's a jocular thing. It's not for me to judge, okay? I don't want to see his penis. But you know what? Maybe it's funny to some people, okay? This was an early 2000s locker room where, you know, JBL was there, Chris Benoit was there, the fucking Waltman was there, Orton, Lesnar apparently liked to expose himself to people too, according to Terry Runnels. So we got lots of just showing your dicks to people in wrestling back then. So we'll take that and we'll say that that's pretty well proven as fact, and that's practically assault as it is, so he should have been in a lot of trouble. But the part about forcing her or pressuring her to touch it probably happened if he was drunk and he was already naked and twirling the fucking thing around. But we don't know for sure that happened. And this is where my beef with the Tommy Dreamer and the Impact Wrestling comes into play. Because we don't know for sure that happened. This bitch says it does. It did. She claims that he forced her to touch his penis touching going on, right? But she never took it to court. She settled out of court. So this also is the opinion, or the word, I should say, not the opinion. This is the word, the story, the accusation of one woman who claimed that this happened, but then never actually went to court with it, just got a nice fat payout. And she speaks on that, and she talks about how as a woman, you don't want to really, you know, and you're pressured not to, and blah, 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 blah. And I get all that. I'm not even saying that that's wrong either. And if you're a female listening or a male listening or somewhere in between and you're listening and you think, yeah, man, I was assaulted before and I was scared to speak up about it, it was easier to just bury it. Fine. That could have happened. Rob Van Dam was on record on this show talking about how Ric Flair did that. And you shouldn't meet your idols. It is allegedly. And it was never taken to court. And it was settled out for a big fat paycheck. And I don't know about you, but I tend to believe that there's a lot of people out there that will just say that things happened, looking for a big fat stack of dollar bills out of the deal, but will never actually go to press charges because it never actually happened, and they know that they would never win in court. So it's easier to just say, "Hey, I'm gonna press charges, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that," and then get a paycheck, and then shut the fuck up about it. Maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, but we don't know. There's not any witnesses that have come forward and identified this as fact. Rob Van Dam says it happened, but was he staring at Ric Flair's penis when he was trying to rub it up against a stewardess? And if so, is that how Rob Van Dam likes to spend his downtime, trying to relax, just staring at Ric Flair's penis? Watching him try to rub it up against women, but not getting up and stopping them? If he saw this, where was he? Just watching? Doesn't that make him at fault just a little bit too? So to get the contradictory opinion on this show, because unless you want to make a show that just fucking accuses people of things blindly, you want to offer a balanced opinion, right? You want to say, this is what was alleged, but we can't prove it. Here's people that say it did. Here's people that say it didn't. Tommy Dreamer was a guy who said it didn't. Now, Tommy Dreamer looked fat as fuck and ridiculous in this. He had a scar above his face. I don't know where that came from. I don't watch Impact. Where'd that giant scar up his fucking, from his eye to the hairline come from? And his hair. Why is he had two ponytails and it was like greased back, and oh, did he look awful. But Tommy Dreamer comes on here and says, you know, the Nature Boy's going to just show his penis sometimes. That's just what he does, and that's just the wrestling business. Sometimes the boys get a little fucked up, and sometimes they walk around and they twirl their dick around in their hand, and that's just wrestling. And would that fly in today's day and age? No. Should it have flew back then? No. But it's, at the end of the day, it's jocular humor, right? It's a bunch of fucking jocks, a bunch of meatheads, a bunch of dudes that have nothing better to do, that are overpaid, celebrities that are on vacation in a foreign country. They've had a long trip. Now they're getting drunk as fuck, and they're trying to while out, relax, unwind, have fun. Ric Flair pulls his penis out. It's happened before. It's happened in hotel rooms and hotel lobbies, and just Ric Flair gets drunk, wears his robe and nothing else. It's something that happens, and it's part of wrestling, okay? So that's what Tommy Dreamer's trying to explain. He's simply setting the table for you. Yes, if you were a normal person and some old man came walking down in his bathrobe and just his bathrobe and started swinging his hips and trying to make his penis swing around in circles, you could identify that as problematic. But in the wrestling business, 70s, 80s, 90s, even trickled into the early 2000s before, everything got really serious and corporate. This is just locker room stuff, guys. This is what the boys do to entertain themselves. Tie a balloon around it. See if it floats. This is what we do in the wrestling business, right? At least back then. It's just a thing. So Dreamer's trying to explain this to us and say, hey, man, this is just how it is. But I don't believe, I didn't see, and I don't believe the nature boy of all people who gets laid 100,000 times in his lifetime by 100,000 different women needs to force himself onto people. Does that mean he didn't? No, you get alcohol involved, you get a big penis swinging around like a helicopter. The stewardess is the only female on the fucking plane with a bunch of dudes, and he's drunk and blacked out. Maybe they're H-bombs and shit. Maybe he did. But I'm hanging my hat on the fact that nobody witnessed it. If they did, they sure as fuck didn't get up and do anything about it. And it was never brought to court. It was never brought to justice. It was brought up for a paycheck, and then it wasn't talked about anymore. That's fishy, and I'm not saying she's lying. It very well could have happened. I'm 50-50 on it, because I don't know. I wasn't there. And there's no eyewitnesses, and there's no legal documents supporting any of this. Just one woman's word against one man's word, okay? So Rob Van Dam says, yeah, this is what happened. And Tommy Dreamer says, no, this is what happened. And wouldn't you fucking know it, the internet goes insane. Let's cancel Ric Flair. Let's cancel Tommy Dreamer because he stuck up for Ric Flair. Are you fucking kidding me? We have Tommy Dreamer saying, A, this is just something that happens in the wrestling business, especially with Ric Flair. It's a wrestling type thing you wouldn't understand. It's a different culture, okay? And B, there's no fucking proof that this ever happened. And Tommy Dreamer is saying, I don't think it did. I don't think it did. I don't think that Flair would do that. What is cancelable about this? Is it that he stuck up for Ric Flair wagging his penis around? Okay, fine. I get that. I've already admitted that's assault to just pull your penis out and show it to a woman that doesn't want to see it. That's assault. So, in that itself, Rick should have been punished, and Tommy probably shouldn't have been so meh about it. At the same time, this was not, okay, the penis being out was not so much an assault on this woman as just a thing that Ric Flair does in the wrestling business, and the woman just happened to be there. Should there have been more respect and appreciation paid for the lady on the plane working there? Maybe she didn't need to see all this. Yes, of course. Of course. And people should have been punished. But was this a thing that Ric Flair did that was normal to the wrestling business at the time? Yes or no? Answer the question. Okay. You've answered it. We don't need to address it. I don't need to hear your answer. You know in your heart what that answer is. Now, Tommy Dreamer, what did he say? Did he just simply say that this was something that Ric Flair does and it's the wrestling business? Yeah, that's what he said. So far, you agree with thing that happened so far. And Tommy Dreamer is agreeing that thing happened. So far, we're all on the same page. Is he supposed to condemn Ric Flair for this? Maybe, probably should have, as a matter of fact, especially in today's culture. He should have said, yeah, that wasn't cool and you don't show your dick to chicks on planes. But, was this something Ric Flair was known to do? Yes. Was this something that happens in the wrestling business? Yes. Okay. So, both things are true at this point. Tommy Dreamer is offering that alternate perspective. Because anybody else watching this show that's not as privy to the wrestling business is going to hear this story, going to watch this show and go, oh my God, what a dirty, abusive, perverted, filthy motherfucker Ric Flair was. And he might have been. And you could say that he was because it's gross to show your dick to chicks that don't want to see it. But it was the wrestling business at that time, in that era. And it was Ric Flair. It was Nate. She was Nachin. That's what it's called. It's called Nachin. They have a term for it, as a matter of fact. So both things are true at the same time. And Tommy Dreamer was offering the wrestling business perspective of it to the people that were watching that would go, oh my God, that's insane. And he's just simply here to say, no, not really. This is just kind of Tuesday for Ric Flair. And then he offered his 2 cents that I don't think Rick would have done that. Okay. We have no proof that he did do it. So what are we canceling Tommy Dreamer for again? You don't have to agree with what he said. You don't even have to think he was right or you can say that he probably should have chose different words or condemned Rick or whatever. But when you're putting together a show, the idea is you have an incident that is alleged. Okay? It's alleged. So you want to get one person's perspective on it, then you want to get another person's opposite perspective of it. You want to offer both sides of the story so that you as the watcher can make up your own mind. And you need that extra context that this is just naching in the wrestling business in the early 2000s. Because that's important context. It really is. Rick should have been a gentleman and kept his penis in his pants when there were women on the plane. Terry was there too, Terry Runnels. There were probably other women on the plane. So Rick was in the wrong showing his penis. At the same time, if this was just the wrestling locker room or the hotel or somewhere else that didn't have an innocent fucking stewardess on board, Rick walking around waggling his penis is perfectly normal. This is normal wrestling stuff. Penises get flopped around. It happens. You can't go back and retroactively judge people for things that were just common or accepted at the time. You can't go back in time and get mad at somebody for doing something that just was normal back then. And Ric Flair's penis swinging around out in the open with his robe on was normal back then. That was the norm. And this woman just happened to be there. Does that make it right? No. Are you going to try to cancel me for even having this conversation? Fuck you. I'm just trying to be a devil's advocate here. I'm not even trying to aggressively take sides or be stubborn on this. Context is king, right? This was Nachin around at a time where Nachin around wasn't that big of a deal. And Tommy Dreamer now is indefinitely suspended because he simply stated fact and opinion. Fact, this was the wrestling business. And this is Ric Flair. This is just who these people are and what these things are. So Tommy stating his opinion and a fact about the time and place of the wrestling business gets him canceled today. Should the show have just buried Rick and everybody just piled on and just the fuck Ric Flair episode? Or, because it was an alleged situation, should there be a dissenting side? Just another opinion. Just somebody else saying, maybe it didn't happen. And maybe this was just commonplace in the wrestling business at the time. That voice needed to be said on that episode to make it a well-rounded episode and not the fuck Ric Flair episode. But you people on the internet take things and you go, oh my god, Ric Flair showed his penis and Tommy Dreamer said it was kind of okay. It wasn't okay. But Tommy's not entirely wrong with the way that he said what he said. And he knew even having that conversation. He made the joke about it, about, oh, my ponytail is going to offend you. It did. It offended me. I noticed your hair looked ridiculous before you even said something. Who, by the way, is also known for walking around naked all the time. And people just joke about it because it's the wrestling business. Because wrestlers are just naked a lot of times. Somebody's going to get offended by it. Well, the internet got offended by it. And I might be wrong. What am I missing? Am I missing something here? Fired? Suspended? Indefinitely? Burn him at the stake. Torch him. Tie him up. Throw rocks at him. Stone that bitch to death. I don't know. I want your thoughts. What do you guys think? Where do you weigh in on this? I would love the comments on this. And, you know, you can do your cancel culture stuff and be like, how dare you, blah, 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 blah. But I would really rather just kind of hear your opinions. If you agree with me or Dreamer, tell me why. If you disagree and you think Dreamer was in the wrong too and I'm in the wrong for sticking up for Dreamer, then I want to hear why. I want to hear why you believe that. I'll end it on this. Ric Flair should have never shown his penis. He assaulted that woman, whether he ever actually touched her or not. That is assault. And he should have been punished. And it's not cool. It's not funny. And really probably shouldn't even be justified or stuck up for. At the same time, this was not a normal man in a normal working environment. This was the nature boy Ric Flair in the wrestling business. So, take all of that as you will. But Tommy just being a fucking pundit with an opinion on this show to help balance things out from fucking Rob Van Dam outright accusing Ric Flair of it. You gotta give that balance because we don't have the facts and it's not proven, so you can't just accuse without offering the opposite opinion. That's my 2 cents. I've gone a half hour on this, so I'm gonna quit ranting and move on to the next subject. But Jesus fucking Christ.
Could it be over? Leg up. Will we have a new champion? We do! Oh my gosh! Here is your winner and the new WWE Champion, Big E! Can you believe it? The New Day can believe it! Right here in Boston, Massachusetts, we have a new WWE Champion, and his name is Big E!
We have a new WWE Champion. His name is Big E motherfucking Langston. And I could not be happier for this man. This was going to be my top story before Ric Flair had to go and pull his dick out 20 years ago. Now I gotta have this as my second story. Thanks, Ric Flair's dick. Anyway, Big E wins the World Heavyweight Championship. This is amazing. What a well-deserving man. It's been said that Big E's like the most liked guy backstage, right? And everybody's happy for him. Nobody has a bad thing to say about him. I've heard some people say that they don't think he's ready. First of all, fuck you. You don't know what you're talking about. He's ready. Big E's been ready. He's born ready. He can handle this. He's got this. He's a little bit goofy, but that's just him. He's a goofy guy. Goofy guy. Hopefully this wasn't a hot shot because of NFL or AEW, if that's the case. Probably more NFL. Hopefully this was like, hey, we really want Big E to be our champion. Maybe that's why they gave him the Money in the Bank briefcase. I hope this wasn't a hot shot decision. I hope they don't take the belt off of him anytime soon. I don't want to see this be a Kofi thing. Let's not do this thing to the New Day where we just give them world title wins and then take it away from them in less than spectacular fashion and then just drop them right back down to where they were. You know, Big E doesn't lose this title and then just go back to being Big E, Intercontinental mid-card guy. Big E's a main eventer. He belongs in the main event, and he shall forever remain in the main event, in my humble opinion. But what an awesome night this was. You know, I don't compliment WWE a lot because for the most part, their show is bullshit. All of their shows are bullshit. Everything they do is bullshit, including NXT. You guys fucking see NXT? Looks like a fucking paint bucket. Fucking box of crayons threw up all over a piece of white paper. And it's called NXT now. And half the guys that you used to like aren't there. And a bunch of guys you don't know that are all fucking 300-pound muscle dummies suddenly show up and are in main events. The one standout was Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker. Braun because he's strong and Break because he breaks things. I don't like it. Rex Steiner was a dope name. I could have lived with Rex Steiner. I know most people named Rex is stupid, but I could look at that guy and I go, yeah, Rex Steiner works for me. Especially because his last name is Rex Steiner. Like it's like a double entendre. Is that what they call it there? Hey, I'm the podcast journalist here, okay? Not you. So don't you fucking tell me how to say words, okay? I went to college for this shit. I can say words how I want them to be said, and it's correct. Anyways. Rex Steiner was a good name. Like, why do you not like Rex Steiner? Why do you got to go Braun Breaker? I hope they change that. We've seen name changes happen in the past. Vince isn't shy to change names. Rex Steiner was already clearly a name change from Bronson Rex Steiner, which you wouldn't call him that. You could call him Bronson Steiner, but Rex Steiner is fine. That works for me. It's okay. But Braun Breaker? Like, you really want to... You got to think about these things far into the future. Your WrestleMania main event. Braun Breaker versus Big E. Come on, man. Sometimes they just gotta not overthink things. So that was a giant sidebar about NXT I didn't mean to go on, because this is all about Big E. And I got down this side hole because WWE in general as a whole has been sucky as fuck lately. Roman Reigns, people like the Roman Reigns things with Paul Heyman. Anything with Paul Heyman is gold. Matt Riddle, bro. But Braun Breaker and stuff like that, like, WWE's lame as fuck, man. But Big E winning the WWE Championship, that's cool. Congrats. Destination unknown. Ruby Soho. Ruby Soho was on Talk is Jericho this week. Talking with Jericho. I used that line last time. I'm going to use it again. I'm going to keep pulling that into the conversation here until it either gets over or it doesn't. I don't know. Anyway, Ruby Soho was on Talk is Jericho talking about everything that you would think that she'd be talking about. Leaving WWE, how she got into the business, joining AEW, blah, 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 blah. You've heard it all before. You've probably already heard Ruby talk about this. What I liked about this conversation was the conversation about how she got the name Ruby Soho. Check this out.
So we had kind of become friends at that point. And then when I got released, I wasn't really planning on doing a lot of interviews or podcasts or anything, because I felt like it was just time for me. Like at that time, it was really hard when I was real sad about it. So I didn't know if it was necessarily the time for me to do a podcast, but he had asked me. I was like, well, if Lars Fredrickson's asked me to do a podcast, I'm going to do it. And during that time, I still wasn't sure what I was going to be called. I didn't really like my indie wrestling name.
Which was
Heidi Loveless.
Oh,
yeah. I didn't really like it because it was given to me, and yes, and
that was you.
Yes,
Okay.
that was me, and it was never pronounced correctly. It was given to me, and so I didn't really want to use it again. And so I had mentioned that to the guys in the podcast, and I was like, I think I want to keep Ruby because like it just feels a lot like me. And I was like, and I hold it near and dear to my heart because it was inspired by the song Ruby Soho. And he laughed and he goes, well, why don't you just use that? And I immediately just crumbled and melted into like 13-year-old me and was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I can get a couple guys on the phone. We can get you, Ruby Soho. We can get you the song. Like, we can work this out. And I was like, I'm in front of a camera just trying to hide my face because I was like, this is not real. Like, this is not real life.
Yeah, I had heard that she was good friends with Lars, but just hearing that whole story in the context, just the way that she told it, just that shit's so cool. I love those kind of stories about wrestling or just life in general. Just like you are now Ruby Soho. You are the girl that the song, you are that song. So I found that to be amazing. I like that there are wrestling fans in high places, like the fucking, major punk bands are just huge wrestling fans. So I love that. And I enjoyed this conversation because I don't think I really knew Ruby all that well. I respected her. Always had respect for her. I don't know that she was ever really one of my favorites, but I respect her. So I appreciate, where she is now and her debut and at All Out, and just, I respect everything about it. I have an appreciation for it, but I wouldn't say like I'm a huge fan or anything. But hearing this conversation almost kind of changed that for me. She seems like just the coolest, humblest, sweetest, most down-to-earth, awesomest, kindest heartedest, punk rockiest chick out there in the world. She just seems so cool, like somebody that I really want to like hang out with and get to know. So after hearing that, I'm even more of a fan of Ruby Soho, and I love the origin of the name. I love her story. I love that she is in a happy place now, and it was just it was one of Jericho's better interviews lately. It really was. So seek that out. Go out of your way to find it. I know some people might skip Jericho sometimes because he's on a lot, but go out of your way to listen to this interview with Ruby. It's just a good conversation, and she just seems like a fucking peach of a female, The man known as Danhausen was on Sam Roberts' podcast this week, talking about that time that we all remember when he retired The Undertaker back in 1993-ish. Check this out.
His name, The Undertaker?
Yes.
His brother.
Always slips Danhausen's mind, but some would call us legends. Danhausen retired him.
Retired The Undertaker?
Yes.
When?
What was it? Not Monday Night WrestleMania, not Friday Night WrestleMania, but it was WrestleMania 1993. Danhausen went in, gave him the tombstone, and he was out of business.
Because I thought in the 1993 WrestleMania, I thought The Undertaker wrestled Giant Gonzalez to a victory.
Maybe it was a disguise.
Oh.
Danhausen is he's taller than The Undertaker.
You are? I mean,
Yes.
you're sitting, so I can't tell.
Yes, well, when Danhausen stands, he would smash through the ceiling.
Yeah, that must be kind of a hindrance to be that tall.
Sometimes, but we could retire people like The Undertaker or considered legends of the business and, be friends with The Rock.
Yeah, I guess Why is it such a secret that you retired the Undertaker?
It's not the secret that the Undertaker's retired, is it?
No, it's not a secret. That
He's been on the Hot Wing show, and he's been on.
Yeah, no, I saw. No, it's not a secret that he's retired. It's just as an Undertaker fan, I feel like that's one of those like. First of all, if he had been retired since 1993, I thought he retired within the last year.
So no, he was retired in 1983 by Danhausen originally.
Oh,
and then he came back and almost got retired by the Jimmy John's fellow, the Sandwich Man.
Are you talking about Brock Lesnar?
Yes, he's friends with good friends with Danhausen's friend Paul Heyman.
Right. Paul Heyman likes you?
Oh, probably yes.
I have to imagine.
You would think because look how good Danhausen is.
Hey, you heard it there. Like, I don't make this stuff up. Danhausen said that he retired The Undertaker back in 1993-ish. So if he said that he did it, he did it. I believe him. He said he's just kind of been on his farewell tour ever since. And it makes sense. I buy it. Danhausen is a formidable opponent to any man, including a 1993 Undertaker. Back when he still had the curly red hair. Remember the curly red hair the Undertaker had? That was badass. I don't know how it magically turned straight all of a sudden. Does his hair turn straight with old age? Does he straighten it before every show? Is it just all the grease and oil and water and stuff in it that, like, I kind of like the poofy red curly froey hair. He looked like I don't know what he looked like. But he stood out. All right, he was the only 7-foot zombie I knew of that had a curly red mullet. But Danhausen, an incredibly entertaining guest on any podcast. Anytime you hear the name Danhausen pop up, there's videos out there of him showing up at Pro Wrestling Tees. One time he stole his own T-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees, and then he returned later with a pizza to try to make amends with everybody. And Danhausen is pure entertainment. The man is a genius. The man behind the paint. What a guy. I just appreciate Danhausen. This whole Danhausen thing. Like, I really hope he finds even more success. Like, I hope his current Ring of Honor level of fame, I hope he exceeds that somehow. I don't know that he'll ever end up in a WWE. I don't know that he'll ever even be a good fit for an AEW. I could see him in AEW for a one-off. I mean, they had the fucking Warhorse guy in AEW, and, you know, they brought in Nick fucking Gage and all that stuff. So I could see them bringing in a Danhausen for a shot, but I want to see Danhausen make it in life. He's already making it. He's doing well. I'm sure he's selling tons of T-shirts, and he's probably got a decent contract with Ring of Honor, and he's probably doing all right for himself. I'm sure his indie booking fee is pretty substantial. I'll bet you Danhausen could get $1,000 on the indies. I'll bet you he could. I'll bet you his going rate is $1,000. That's pretty good for those of you that don't know. That's pretty high up for the indies. That's a guy that's been on TV would make $1,000 a shot. Plus trans, right? You got to get the trans in there. Much respect to Danhausen. Go out of your way to listen to this interview. It's very, very well spoken, very informational, educational. All the other anals, all the other anals are on this podcast. And look, I mean, insights like beating The Undertaker and retiring him back in 1993, like, who else does that? Adam Cole, baby, was on BTE this week, Being the Elite, the YouTube show from the Young Bucks that's been going on for years and years and years. Goes all the way back to before Adam Cole even went to NXT. Because he was on Being the Elite, hanging out with the Elite, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega. Check out this clip.
Crazy, okay, time out. So we're not called the Bullet Club anymore?
Just the Elite anymore. Now.
We don't even do fucking years.
Hey, get it. We don't even
fucking Bullet Club for fucking years. I've been out of the loop, Kenny.
Hey,
get a hold of this.
Hey,
We don't
so
even do
that's
the hand gesture anymore either. We
No,
do
but
something
too sweet.
new.
Yeah, we have a new
We do
song.
something
Sweet.
way better.
That is way better.
Yeah.
That actually is a lot.
Isn't
better.
that cool?
And on top of that, so Cody's not in the group.
Not anymore.
And now he's a judge on a reality show.
Yeah.
Judge on a reality show.
It's crazy, man. It's been 4 years.
I mean, he found his true calling. What can I say?
I
Wrestling
guess.
wasn't really working out, clearly.
Hey,
You know?
speaking of wrestling, though, the craziest thing that you guys told me today. You guys started this wrestling company?
Just the three of us.
Oh my! So it's the best wrestling company in the world.
It is.
When you're the best ever to lace them up, it kind of
True.
We did do that.
Well, it's been so good catching up with you guys. And speaking of catching up, I think I'm going to go have a brewski with old Hangman.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey.
Oh, no, he's not here.
Hold on on that. Hold on.
Hey, why would I not want to
Instead
have
of
a
a brewski, why don't you grab one of these energy drinks?
Oh,
They're
okay.
delicious.
I'll take one for the road.
Yeah.
I'll take one for the road.
And man, that guy's
How
such
we
a
gonna do
good
it?
guy. Why did we try to kill him in the first
No.
place?
How are we going to convince him otherwise that we are still good guys and not
But why
bad guys?
why did we try to kill him? I can't remember. It's been 4 years.
I know. Well, he was trying to take my spot, didn't you?
He was.
Yeah, but
Insecurities,
it's pro
alpha
wrestling.
males.
You politic behind his back.
Right.
You don't try to murder
Oh
him.
man, I should have politic behind his back. I should have
Exactly.
Of course you
texted.
should have.
I should.
Yeah, so for those that aren't caught up, I didn't even put it on last week's show. Adam Cole is back on BTE. They did a thing where they did a seance. Kenny and the Bucks and everybody were sitting around, the Good Brothers, they're all sitting around in a circle. And they were having a seance. They were trying to raise the dead because previously on BTE, the last time Adam Cole was on there, he was murdered by the Elite with some poison in a monster drink. And of course, that was to write him off of BTE so that he could go show up in NXT. So they're doing a seance to bring him back. And it doesn't work. And they leave the room all pissed off. And the camera pans up and there's Adam Cole, baby. Just chilling. Back from the motherfucking dead. So this episode was just them catching up, right? Standing around, getting caught up on things. Adam hasn't been around in 4 years. He's just been disappeared like the snap from Thanos, right? Just blipped off the fucking planet for 4 years. And so they're all catching up and having a little skit ski. I love this shit. This is funny as hell. I showed this to a buddy who hadn't watched BTE before. And he said he was going to start watching BTE now because how funny this was. It even made him like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega better. Because now he gets them. He sees why they're so fucking ridiculous on TV. Because they're actually just ridiculous people who like to have fun and a good time. And on BTE, it's a little bit different. They get to have a little more fun. So Adam Cole, baby, is back. And Kenny Omega possibly plotting against him still. We'll see how this develops. But to me, all is right with the world. Adam Cole seems so fucking happy to be where he is. I mean, he was top dog in NXT. He got along great with Trips and got along great with HBK. And he was just like, he fit there. He was good there. He had a home there. He had his friends in the Undisputed Era. But at the end of the day, his very best friends, his closest, like, if he was having a wedding with, say, Britt Baker, you know, just a random, just if he was to marry, say, Britt Baker, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega would probably be standing in his wedding. That's how close these guys are. And then apparently Britt Baker, right? Of course. So he's happy to be there. And he gets to just kind of have fun and do what he wants and relax. And it's just all is right with the world. Adam Cole is where he belongs. And it's great to see it. Like when he showed up on All Out, to me it was kind of like, it was cool. It was great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking it. But it was like, okay, Adam Cole's here. I was pumped. But it didn't really register the effect of what I was actually watching, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. It didn't take, it took till I watched on Dynamite. And I seen him wrestle, and he's on there wrestling Kazarian on Dynamite. And I'm thinking like, holy shit, Adam Cole's on the other show now. Like it hit me. Like I'm watching somebody that jumped ship. It felt like watching Chris Jericho on Monday Night Raw, or the Radicals on Monday Night Raw, or Lex Luger on Monday Nitro, or Rick Rude on Monday Nitro. We used to watch this shit as kids, if you've been around as long as I have. And it hit me then. Like, at the pay-per-view, it was like, yeah, Adam Cole's an All Elite. Of course he is. Why wouldn't he be? But it was watching him wrestle on the other show, like physically in the ring with the other guys, that made me go, oh, he's on another show now. He's in a whole different company now. And it happened so fast. He didn't have the 90-day no-compete clause, which was even more ridiculous, right? He competed at TakeOver, and he's on AEW like the very next week. It's craziness. This wrestling world that we live in, we are living through the greatest era of professional wrestling right now. If you weren't around in the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars, you weren't around for all that shit, this is probably as close as we're going to get to that. I don't know if we're there yet. I said it last week. I feel like AEW is WCW 1996 right now. So the best is yet to come, in my opinion. Or the biggest war, the biggest part of the war is yet to come. The part where AEW starts to take over. Pun intended. Drew McIntyre was on the Wild Ride with Steve-O podcast this week. Random as fuck, if you ask me, because, you know, Steve-O's had Stone Cold on before, and I think that's it for wrestlers. Maybe like another, but Drew's like not even that big of a star, really. Like, yeah, he was WWE champion, and yeah, he was a main eventer, and I get all that. But he's not like really like a household name, mainstream, like, oh my god, that's Drew McIntyre. Why did I say that like John Laurinaitis? Anyway, so it was kind of random as fuck. Like, I didn't picture him to be the kind of guy that Steve-O is going to want to hit up and stuff. But nonetheless, Steve-O had this conversation with Drew McIntyre. Check out this clip.
You know, I'd lost perspective at that point. When I was a kid, I'd always dreamed of being in WWE and Air Scotland. Would have done anything to get there, did do anything to get there, worked my arse off from 15 years old to 21, get my education at the same time, got my degree from university in criminology, miraculously got signed as the first ever Scotsman to WWE, would have been happy to be the water boy at that point. And it got to the point throughout my career after 23 years old, been named the chosen one by Vince McMahon on television, the future of the company, getting these huge opportunities, screwing them up, going on not just a downward spiral on television, but in my personal life, a lot was going on. My mother got sick outside of the ring away in Scotland with cancer. She inevitably passed. And outside the ring, I was a train wreck. I was going out drinking all the time, partying all the time, arguing with people at work, annoyed with my position. And quite frankly, I had to get fired to get a wake-up call. And the day I got fired is the day I looked myself in the mirror and said, this is on you, buddy. You know, you're going through a lot you probably should have faced. But at the same time, you lost perspective. And from that day forward, I promised myself I would work as hard as I possibly could in every area of my game. I'd be accountable for the first time to the person in the mirror. And I would work my way back to WWE one way or another. And also, I've got to take a second to thank the wife. Because as much as I was going to work hard in the wrestling aspect, that's all I knew. As a person, I was so immature. You know, I was a boy when I got fired. She helped me grow so much as a man. Throughout that time period, I traveled the world. I was the busiest wrestler in the world. I helped grow multiple companies all across the globe, and it felt really good that in WWE, the name sells the brand. You see WWE, unless it's John Cena or The Rock, you're going to go see WWE. But my real name, Drew Galloway, was helping multiple companies across the world grow. Like in Scotland, we went from 1,500 people to 2,000 people to 4,000 people to over 7,000 people. And I had a big effect on that. And that was a great period for me to grow as a wrestler, but grow as a man. And 3 years later, I had a phone call with Triple H. Basically, it was time to come home. I returned to WWE, and thankfully, it was time for me to become the top guy, become WWE champion. So,
it's not so much the clip that I wanted to address, because we're all familiar with Drew's story here. He's told it a million times. We witnessed it. We watched it, and he is one of the best, one of those great success stories in professional wrestling, right? Let's at least put it over and give it credit before we move past it. This man waffled in WWE. He was the chosen one, the Intercontinental Champion, and then he just fucking swirled around and around the toilet bowl till he went down the drain, right? Except for the WLC match. That was a classic. And that's not even me being a smartass or joking. That was a legit classic. I defy you to argue with me and tell me that the WLC match was not a fan-fucking-tastic ladder match. But I digress. The three-man band stuff, like Drew flopped, and he was probably not a good person to be around at the time, bitchy and stuff. And he needed to get fired. He'll admit that. And he got fired, and he could have took that, went and sat on his couch and did indies, and then maybe tried to be an actor. And Drew could very well be Big Cass right now, for all intents and purposes. But he scratched and clawed and fought. He got himself in shape. He got himself over in all these indie promotions. He came back with a fucking purpose. And he got signed again. And he made it all the way up to the main event of WrestleMania in an empty fucking warehouse in front of a camera guy and a referee. Huge, huge accomplishment. I'm not the biggest Drew McIntyre fan. I never got it with him. He's nice. He seems nice, but he seems too nice. Like, not enough edge, not enough coolness there. Just a big, humble, fucking giant Scottish man. His body kind of grosses me out, all like sweaty and oily and hairy and tightly packed into leather small trunks. Pleather. Might just be the pleather. Vinyl-y looking, even. But just the fact that he was on Steve-O's podcast just intrigued the fuck out of me, and that's kind of why I wanted to spotlight it here, was because Steve-O doesn't really do a lot of wrestling. Like I said, he's had Stone Cold, but that almost makes sense because Stone Cold is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He'll be on anybody's podcast because he's a household name. He's a celebrity. He's somebody that anybody knows. Your fucking grandma knows who Stone Cold Steve Austin is, okay? Your fucking cousin Eddie doesn't even know who Drew McIntyre is. And he's the same age as you. He's your contemporary, right? You guys used to play together and fucking you used to get his hand-me-down shirts because he's a couple months older than you. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Go listen to Steve-O. This is a great interview. It's fun to listen to these non-wrestling interviews too because of the fact that guys like Steve-O don't really know the wrestling business, but you can tell he respects it enough and he's trying his best to understand it and he wants to get it, but he's such an outsider still that a lot of the questions he asks are very outsidery questions. Not like, hey, yo, it's survey time outsidery, but like, is it true that you once maybe took a piece of a razor blade and you cut your own forehead to make it bleed? That was a Steve-O question on this interview. And it wasn't like even like a dumb, like smart ass question or anything like that, or a gotcha question. He was legit curious. Like, is this truly a thing that you do as a wrestler? And Drew's not a fibber and not really a kayfaber even. He's like, yeah, I've done that before. That's a thing that wrestlers do, yeah. And Steve-O proceeds to talk about how he does it with glass. He'll smash a light bulb over his head or something as part of his set and then take a little piece of that glass and cut himself somehow. He said on the tongue. I always wondered how guys got color in the mouth. Like, you ever see, like, somebody get, like, stomped in the guts or something and they start coughing up lots of blood? I always wondered how that happened, if they just had, like, a blood capsule or something like that. Or, you know, do they perhaps gig themselves somewhere inside their mouth, which I can't imagine. But Steve-O proceeds to tell a tale here on this particular podcast that he believes, and this is from Steve-O, so don't take this as medical advice, that the tongue is the fastest healing part of the body. so that you could cut it pretty good and get a lot of blood out of it. It supposedly bleeds a lot too, but then it's going to heal itself up really, really quick. So he used to cut himself on his tongue to get color as part of his set. Anyways, go out of your way to check this out for nothing else but the pure spectacle of it. I can't imagine you're actually interested in Drew McIntyre as just like hearing his fucking boring ass story again. But hearing it through the lens of Steve-O, definitely worth it. Well, I think we've done enough damage for one episode, don't you? Half of you already turned me off. Bunch of you are already canceling me. All because Ric Flair pulled his penis out and Tommy Dreamer got suspended. I mean, let's just put it behind us and be friends again. Can we do that? Can we be friends again? Can we have a debate and go through a little bit of a heated discussion, if you will, and make it out the other end still friends? Can we do that? You want a hug? I appreciate you for listening and sticking by me, sticking along with for the full episode. I thought this was a particularly fun episode to do. A lot of great content to cover, a lot of great opinions to give. And I gave them. Agree or disagree, I gave them. With that being said, I am desperately out of time, as Tony Schiavone would say. Peace, love, and pizza. Your humble host, Seth Grimes. Follow me at Seth Grimes Media on the Twitter, on Facebook, and that's the only other places that I am currently. But you can follow me there. Follow our brand, Wrestle Media, on YouTube. This is where you're going to catch all the YouTube video podcasts. I also do clips on there if you just want to listen to select sections of the podcast, but not the full thing. You can go back and listen to old clips as well without having to listen through full episodes. You can also check out other content. I got reviews on there, things like that. Plan on doing a bunch more stuff over there too, so that's just getting started. We're in the NFT game now too, believe it or not. I got a NFT project ready to launch very, very soon, so I'll have info on that coming up shortly. I don't want to give out too much on that quite yet. Don't want to give too much away, but let's just say it's going to be pretty fucking dope, if I do say so myself. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your love and appreciation. Have a wonderful day. This has been the Pro Wrestling Podcast.